Hi, good day. Welcome to Candid, the podcast. My name is Josiah,
My name is Myles.
and we'll be talking all things honest, and all things true. Honestly, this podcast was born out of genuine conversations that Miles and I had.
Yeah.
I just honestly ended up very encouraging and led to a lot of insight and perspective
Yeah.
on different issues that we both have come across.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to invite people into that space and just kind of ignite that.
Yeah, and I think that's what we said as we were conversating and like growing in our relationship. We were like, Dan, if people could be around this conversation and hear what we're saying, they would be encouraged and also provide a kind of heart or a desire for them to be transparent
Yeah.
and for them to be vulnerable as well. And I think that led to choosing the name Candid.
Yeah.
Because it was like we didn't have any plan to do anything. It was just us being real,
Yeah.
honest, transparent with each other. And it's like, hey, if persons could be around these conversations, it would present them with a real good opportunity to be vulnerable as well.
Yeah. Another thing too is like, I do recall from having some of those conversations, the kind of light bulb going off in my head that, wait, maybe I am not alone in the experience of some of these things. Because very often we have this kind of concept that it just feels like no one understands
Yeah.
exactly what I'm going
Yeah.
through or have an idea what this feels like.
Yeah.
And it happened in conversations a lot with us where it was like either we both were experiencing something at the same time or one of us experienced it before
Correct.
or something like that. And it really helped to like build each other
Yeah.
and gain some context into like, okay, how does this
Yeah.
kind of work out? And also the hope of things being okay with
Correct.
certain situations, you know?
Correct.
So it's a really good conversations that we had. And so we just wanted to open up that space to other people.
Yeah,
Listening.
for sure. And even before like we get any topic or anything, I think to have persons understand like we connected based on our journey being similar.
Yeah.
I think when we started sharing like how we got to this place of being lovers of Jesus Christ, it was like, but that's similar to my story. You're like, serious? You went through that? And exactly what you're saying is, I think when we understand that we're not on this journey alone, it makes us feel a bit more equipped, like a bit more comfortable to know
bit
that.
more safe.
Correct, a bit more safe, you know, to know that, hey, I have persons that I could go to, I have persons that I'm on this journey with that could help me. I think of Ecclesiastes 4:9 that says two are better than one because they have a greater chance at success.
Yeah.
Now. So if we could gather around each other on our journey and do life together, I think is a greater chance of running this race well
Wow.
now way. So
Yeah.
even we just want to share with you guys a bit on how we got to this place of being lovers of Jesus Christ. It didn't start here. You know, you might see us or hear us say something like, wait, them rich, but we have not arrived. We are on our journey, you know. And for me, and I know you'd be able to relate, in like 2018, I entered a real dark season where I was really depressed. Got to a place where I was suicidal. I just gotten out of a 3-year relationship, and you know when you build your identity on something rather than the only one that your identity should be placed in. And I built a lot of who I was on this relationship. You know, your first relationship, love, you know, I grew up on Disney Channel. Come on. I grew up on Disney Channel, right? So, like, I am this fairy tale thing. This is how this is gonna be. This is the person I want to marry.
Everybody will break out in song.
Correct. Everybody.
Choreography.
I don't saw everything. I saw
I get you,
everything. I planned it out. I was like, okay, this is how we're gonna go. But you know, our plans are not his plans. Like that was my plan, and lasted 3 years, which to some people might be long. But I think in light of eternity, that's a really short time. Really short time. And it didn't work out. And I would not say due to any party. I just think when something is not built on the word of God, inevitably it will fail now. Like you could try, it could last how long you think it's lasting because God is outside of chronological time. 3 years could have been one day for the Lord, you know? So for me, it was like the reality. I realized that, hey, if I am not growing in my relationship with God, and it took a while to realize that. I think I came to the end of myself. I tried everything in my power, you know, to make this thing work. And when everything was failing, it was like, what else to try? And I remember reaching out to my mom in that season for some advice. She had been married to my dad for 30 plus years. And I was like, Mom, tell me what to do here to get better results. I want her to say, do X, do Y, and you're gonna
And
get
you'll
Z.
get this,
Correct. And she says, son, talk to God about it. I don't know about you. Guys know I
No, you
want
wanted to hear.
Don't want to hear that. Talk to God about it. I want you to tell me, mother, what to do. I trust
As
you.
mother.
Correct, mother. You, I trust you with this. You tell me. And she's like, talk to God. And that's probably the best advice could have ever given me.
Yeah.
I started reading and praying for God to fix my relationship, and quickly I realized he wasn't concerned with fixing the relationship. He's concerned with fixing me, boy.
Yeah.
And as at that time I would have been like 20 years, as a 20-year-old young boy, starting to realize I was very insecure. I struggled with issues with my dad. I was dealing with pornography and masturbation, a lot of lustful things. It was pride. All these things I started to realize that before I even commit to somebody else, like, I am dirty. Like, there's some things. And I realized that in that season, you know, when people see the ugly side of you, they move away. Like, you know, they distance themselves. But here was the only person who wanted to get closer to Jesus, to me, when he saw my filter. And that is something that was real radical to me. It's like, how could you love me at this point? Not, Myles, when you tidy up or when things get better, then I'll love you. It's like, right here, son, I just want to love you. And I went on this journey of just daily doing little things that would draw me closer, you know. James said, draw close to God and he will draw close. Correct. And I just daily doing things. And I remember after a month of seeking him, the girl I was with, she came back and she's like, hey, you know, I still love you and I want to be with you. And I was like, the reality is, if I'm ever going to be a morally good husband to you or any person, I just want to grow in my relationship. And that was hard to say, Charleau. I wanted to be with her, Charleau. Come on, like, she came back after a month. Yes, this is what I started going to God for. Like, come on, it's happening. But within that month, I realized that, hey, you could so run after things instead of the person who gave things, that eventually the things become an idol, boy. And once something is in the place where God's supposed to be, it will, bro.
He gonna deal with it.
It dog, real.
He gonna deal with it.
Real. So I dipped and I just went on this journey, and in the last 5 years, I've been on this journey, an imperfect journey, I would say that, but in relationship with a perfect God that's so loving and so gracious and so compassionate, slow to anger, you know. So that has been like my, and I know you relate to some of that.
You know, for me, I know people that say they're born in church, right? I wasn't born in church, I was born in a hospital. But the metaphor stands, right? Like, I grew up in church from a really, really young age. And I remember I think I got baptized. I got baptized the year before, like, I went away to study after school. And it was really interesting because I've always had this, like, love for God and all that kind of, like, passion and fire. And, like, the minute that, like, I stepped away from church and fam and everything like that, I went down the line, you know. I think there were a lot of new experiences, a lot of new things that I wasn't exposed to because of the environment that I was in. And for a period of time, I call it my dark ages. That is what I literally term it as. For about 2 to 3 years, I did not, like, deal with God at all. Like, I stopped talking to him, I stopped spending time, probably went to church like once or twice. And I think for me, I gradually got desensitized to him and all that he kind of represented. It wasn't just that I wasn't going to church, it ended up like I just got desensitized to everything. And long story short, I went through my first and second relationships in that period of time, both of which ended were really, really low points. The second one way more so. And I remember reaching to, like, I was a real dark place. And, like, similarly, like, I reached the point of suicide. I remember clearly it was a birthday, and I remember like, I was home at that time and I just wanted to leave home. I didn't want to be around everybody. And I stayed until probably like lunchtime because mom was like, listen, if you don't want to celebrate your birthday, that's fine. But I want to celebrate the day that you came into my life. And that also kind of, you know, it sounds like in a moment like that, that would be like, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I needed. But in that moment, I felt even worse because I didn't realize, and I didn't realize this until years after. I thought it was just after, like just the suicide thing. But in that entire time, and maybe sometime before too, I was developing a hatred for myself that ran really deep. Like self-loathing ran really, really deep with me. And I remember I went back to my apartment because I had an apartment at the time. But I was in the process of moving out. So I moved out a lot of this stuff. So I went up there, you know, and I just couldn't like execute the plan at all. Like no matter what I tried, like I couldn't execute the plan. And I remember just breaking down and crying. And in that moment, I remember feeling the tangible embrace of the Lord. It was a warmth, and bro, that revolutionized my life because at that moment I realized that in that entire period of time when I was away from him, I forgot what it felt like to really be loved. And it's not that I wasn't loved by him or other people, it's just that I was not in a place to receive it because I detached myself from him. And that was a real, it had a lot of implications for me, honestly, because here I was at my lowest, like lowest, and you're showing me that you love me. So it made me question now if, I mean, like, God are real options. You want to think about it. There are real people in this world. They are real options. And he still chooses to love me. So, like, if he loves me and sees such value in me, I started to ask myself the question, what does God see in me that he loves me like this? And that started a whole journey for me, where I started to repair my relationship with him, where I started to go back and become like really involved in church and the word and everything. And I mean, it was more than just like going to church or reading the Bible or those things. It was just reestablishing and building a relationship. And since then, and especially like when you said 5, I started to come back my dog, and I feel like it's 5. Where it started a specific journey with me with love. And it was just it. I think what's interesting is the fact that you said that God wanted to work on you. And I feel like in this period of time, God has been refining me, you know, and refining is a really pretty word. It sounds really nice, guys, but refining is heat, is pressure, is not pretty. It's not pretty, and with the wrong perspective and the wrong posture, you could view that as hell on earth, which I did many times. And then I think for me, like, I blamed a lot of people, a lot of things, a lot of circumstances. I blamed God for a lot of things, and I think during that period of time, I realized that, hey, you know, I may be the problem.
No doubt
like
about
I may be the problem. It's okay, right? But yeah, it's been this beautiful journey, you know. And like for me, like where I am now, I'm really grateful for life. One, and for a life well lived. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's like pursuit of a life well lived, you know. I just don't want to like live and do all this and gain all this and gain all that, but it's like enjoying and being invested in the relationships we have, you know, growing in Christ and in character, you know. I mean, just so much, you know what I mean? Affecting your communities, not just because, oh, you want people to say you're affecting a community, but because it's actually helping people to live a better life. You know, there are a lot of us here that are walking around, and we were those guys. You know, we walked around depressed, we walked around sad, we walked around blaming the world, we walked around thinking that nothing good ever gonna happen to us, you know, and we're not the only ones that is happening to, you know. And through similar and different methods. Like God met us,
Yeah.
you know, and we've been through quite a process and still going through. Still going through that process of being refined, you know. I think God wants to bring us into the image of himself. And that doesn't happen by him giving us a list of things to do and us doing it. You know, we had how much? 600 and something.
613.
And we, like, if you think about it, it sounds plenty, but it's doable. If you have 680, then it's like, okay, I have an actual blueprint, yet still we couldn't do it. You know, I just estimate to the fact that we need him, we need God, and whether you like it or not, we need people, because the character of God is formed in us not in isolation, but in relationship.
Correct.
You know,
See that again. Say this. So I need to marinate for someone.
the character of God is formed not in isolation, but in relationship. You know, if you think about what love is patient, love is kind, you know, keeps around. Like, we could go down the line. You know, but none of that is applicable outside a relationship. If it's me existing on my own, I have absolutely no need to be patient or keep record around, because I know wrong in anybody if it's just me. You know, and what I've learned particularly is that I feel is that relationships present the opportunity. You know, because God doesn't like force our hand, but we're always in relationship, whether it's your dad, whether it's your mom. And I'm sure everybody could find a issue right now that is like, okay, I had or have this issue that was born out of this relationship. And the fact of the matter, that presents an opportunity for you to either go the way of this is a very crappy situation, I'm going to blame and resent someone else for it and have that affect me that way, or actually seek out what is actually going on here. You know what I mean? What God says about this and what is my heart posture as it relates to God in this relationship. So yeah.
No, bro, that's so good, and I just want to highlight something you mentioned even before we wrap up. Just the whole idea of you don't grow in isolation, right? Like, we grow through difficulty. I think of like a tree where it's planted. Like, it's not just a case where the weather is ideal. Adverse weather, or when it's not ideal, is where this tree roots really grew deeper to get nutrients. And I think when we go through hardship is where we really grow deeper in God. And when we solidify who we are in him and who he is to us. And then now when, like, oftentimes I hear people say, I'm leaving the job or leaving the church or I'm ready to rent outside of my home because of the difficulty. And I submit to them, I say, if God has not spoken to you and say, leave this environment, he knows him putting you in that environment is where you need to grow. Because our vision is so small or so nearsighted, like we don't see the whole picture, we don't understand that.
By nature,
bro, what he's doing is for next season. So if you abort what is going on here or you run away from it, it's like the children in Israel, bro. It's like the children of Israel, like they just in the wilderness circling and circling and circling because they aren't becoming who they need to be for the promised land. And I just like to submit to someone, like, wherever you are planted, that's where you need to be to grow. As they say, like, stop complaining, stop looking at it. God has placed some things on the inside of you. I was asked a question recently, and I was at a young adults meeting, and they asked, due to where the world is going, are we fearful or are we excited? My answer was excited, and I said why? Because I believe when things get more difficult, we realize a lot of what was deposited on the inside of us. You know, if I'm a chef, so if I'm in the kitchen and I'm just cooking, that's familiar. But then when someone comes and say, develop a recipe for this, I start to realize that I have the ability to do this. This is something that I may know how to do. I just have not been challenged to that extent now. So I just want to say to someone, like, as challenging as it is right now in this season, you'd realize that God has placed some things on the inside of you. A lot of people who lost their jobs, they realize how creative they were. They
Yeah,
start
boy,
businesses,
wow.
they start doing music, creating stuff.
And a lot of that was on the inside already.
Correct. It was there. You know, 2 Peter 1:3 says he's given us everything that pertains to life and godliness through the knowledge of him. So everything that we need for life is on the inside of us, but difficulty makes it arise. Yeah, I just want to encourage you guys, even in this season, as hard as it may be, continue trusting God, continue developing. Remember that he desires us to become more than for us to do, because we can just be caught up doing, and we are not taking time to become that. So,
more interested in who we become.
Correct. Than what we do for him.
I think that's something that's real important to remember, because I think we could get very caught up with doing and a kind of system where it's like we need to do to feel accepted, to feel loved, to feel like we have value. But you know, God says that before the foundations of the earth, like I chose you, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. The hairs on your head are numbered. I have a plan for you, a plan to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. And the fact is that this is something that I had to go and find out, because I was in that place of operating of, and still sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
But it's like what I do doesn't give me my value.
Correct.
God has already ascribed that value to you. And I needed to understand that. I needed to understand God's perspective of me to live in a way that was pleasing unto him, and that was actually healthy for my being. And that is the truth of it. God has already placed that value on you, and he's concerned with developing you that way. You know, and so that's like something I like to really leave with you all and encourage you all, because I know sometimes it gets kind of frustrating, you know, trying to do things and you know, you do something, you get some value, but then you have to do something again to get more value, and then you have to do something again to get some more value, and then I do something again and you don't value it, so then I don't feel valued. I mean, that's literally what we go through so many other times. But I challenge you to really believe what God says about you, and that the fact that he actually values you. When we start to live out of value instead of living to gain value, it's going to change your life. It's really, really going to change your life. So yeah.
That's good stuff. Well, guys, thank you all for being a part of the podcast, and, you know, just vibing with us. This is the start of what we hope it really bless hearts, transform lives. You all feel free to share with us any way you want. If it's in the comments, if you'll reach out to us personally, let us know how you've been vibing with the content. Let us know what stood out to you, anything that you want to encourage us with as well. We would appreciate it.
We do appreciate it.
You all are part of this podcast as much as we're giving content. You all are sharing and helping us grow and do life together. So yeah, blessings.
Otherwise,
I think that was a vibe for sure.